National parks exposed, hundreds missing. Now, this is interesting. Um, as it turns out, there are literally hundreds of people that are missing, mostly around Yosemite, and apparently the National Park Service is covering it up. I've heard bits and pieces about this. Over the past few months, but I thought it'd be interesting to actually really take a look at it. I came across an article that actually talks about a video from a researcher who looks into these things, David Politis. So in this article, it says that the article is about an hour long, which I will be watching later on today. But this article hits the highlights, so that's what I wanted to discuss in this video. Now it says that these people are not. They're not looking to suicide, or they didn't fall in a river, or get lost hiking, or camping, or anything. Animal attacks are eliminated. All those possibilities apparently have been weeded out, and says there's no explanation for these these disappearances. There's no record of any missing person within the National Park Service database because they are instead followed by local PD only, and these are mostly small rural town PDs, not the larger cities or the hometowns of the disappeared. And it says that requests for the Freedom of Information Act documents are being suppressed when requested by a published author to defray the cost of FOIA records, as is the law. They are being assessed up to $1 million assessments, which is apparently illegal. And in some cases, the government is flat out refusing to release information, also against the law, obviously, if no criminality is suspected. Mostly these people are listed as missing and presumed dead. Most of these cases also involve dogs used as trackers and search agents. When given the scent, the dogs will refuse to search. When the few are found and are alive, they are often found in areas with swamps, briar patches, and have previously been searched extensively, often with military SAR and Green Beret assets. They are found with all their clothing removed, with some type of fever, and with a mental disability of some kind. There's all age groups and both genders, disabled individuals as well. And then some of the more prominent locations where this happens is Yellowstone, Yosemite, Crater Lake, Mount Rainier, Lake Tahoe, Travis Seward Pinyon Pines, Sierra Nevadas, Sequoia Kings Canyon, Glacier National Park, Rocky Mountains National Park, Adirondacks, Great Smoky Mountain National Park, Pinedale, Wyoming, McKean, Pennsylvania, and Arkansas State Park. So it says the state of Pennsylvania and Wyoming have the largest number of missing kids by far. These are not abductions, they simply have vanished. There are 35 cluster areas in the United States where the most people have been identified and no clues to the disappearances have been found. They're just simply gone. So the video is a presentation by an ex-LEO detective, someone well versed in the missing people, in missing people. It's completely unexplained, but it's well worth your time to look into it, to check this video out. And it says the National Park Service doesn't keep sufficient records on these vanishings, and in fact, it appears to be hiding this information from the public. Strangely, a big percentage of these disappearances have clues in common: huckleberries, dogs, swamps, and bad weather. So author David Politis has written the books Missing 411 Western U.S., Missing 411 Eastern U.S., and Missing 411 North America and Beyond, and a bunch of other great books. You can check the links in the show notes below for some of his books. It's interesting. To tell the little-known story of these disappearances dating back at least 125 years in this country. The year 2013 saw more national park disappearances than in the past 17 years combined, and that was at the time of the writing of this article. So I don't know if 2014 or 2015 maybe have had even more. Paulides has hit several stone walls in his quest to solve the mystery of the disappearances, including the National Park Service and the FBI. So in the beginning it says that Paulides, with a career in law enforcement, first learned of the disappearances from national park employees who confided their concerns to him about the inordinate amount of missing campers from the parks and the mystery surrounding them. When he began digging for information, he saw the 28 clusters of disappearances around the country, the number one cluster being Yosemite National Park near San Jose, where Paulides had served as a police officer. Most of those who have disappeared are children ages 20 months to 12 years, and the elderly ages 75 to 80 or 74 to 85. Not one person carrying a firearm and only one carrying a transponder device has disappeared. Typically, a search is initiated and run for about 10 days and then dropped. It says 50% of children who go missing are found dead, and the ones who are found miles away from where they disappeared, in areas seemingly impossible for them to get to on their own. The majority of children who have disappeared had dogs with them. In some cases, the dogs returned, but the children never did. Children found alive won't talk about their experience or say they don't remember what happened to them. They're found usually running a low-grade fever and appear traumatized. In all cases, the parents say that the child was right behind them when they disappeared. Usually, the children are wearing bright, colorful clothing when they disappear, and even if they're found miles away without shoes they were wearing, their feet are not scratched or bruised. Yosemite National Park, with 40 to 45 cases, has the largest cluster of vanishings, and oddly, in most areas where the disappearance have occurred, huckleberries are almost always in great abundance, which is very strange. Many of the areas that people have disappeared from carry such names as Devil's Gulch, Devil's Lookout, Twin Devil Lake, and Devil's Punch Bowl. Perhaps named to reflect the evil people have sensed in those places over time. In 95% of the cases, bad weather strangely follows a disappearance, washing out footprints and other clues and making it impossible to carry on a search until the weather clears. In 98 to 99% of the cases, tracking dogs are unable to find a scent, or they just simply refuse to track. Almost 98% of the disappearances occur in the afternoon. Searches have been known to cover an area over 100 times, only to later find the person alive or dead in the same area that they've already searched. When Paulides first requested information from the National Park Service under the Freedom of Information Act about the missing persons, he was told that they had no records. Later, an attorney called Paulides and asked him why he wanted the information. Since Paulides was a published author, he was entitled to an exemption from any fees associated with obtaining records from the Park Service, but the attorney told him that the Park Service would not abide by that rule, since supposedly Paulides' books weren't in enough libraries. And judging from the amount of reviews on Amazon, Paulides' books, they appear to be very popular. And as I've said, I've heard people talk about them. And we even talked a little bit about it in a previous interview of the Sharpening Report, where I had on Sarah Brown, who's done extensive research into the Bigfoot phenomenon and UFOs and those types of things. We talked a little bit about it on that episode. So Paulides was shocked when the attorney told him that if he wanted the non-existent records from Yosemite National Park, it would cost him $34,000, and if he wanted records from all the national parks, the price tag would be $1.4 million, which is absolutely insane. In the Rocky Mountain National Park in 1938, a husband and wife hiked high into the park and sat down to rest. Looking Up high above them on a cliff in an area called the Devil's Nest, they spotted a small boy all alone, and thinking the foolish parents were nearby, the couple moved on and later drove home. As they arrived in the valley below where they had hiked, they saw as many as 2,500 people mulling about, but didn't stop to ask what was going on. The next morning, they saw a photo of the missing child in the newspaper, and recognizing him as the child that they had seen, they drove back to the park to tell the searchers, but the young boy was never found. So that's one of the missing persons cases. There's another one. A 2-year-old boy was visiting his grandparents in Ritter, Oregon in 1952 when he disappeared. He was found unconscious 19 hours later in a frozen creek bed. To arrive there, the small toddler would have had to run non-stop 12 miles across 2 mountain peaks in those 19 hours, which obviously is impossible considering his age and size. And what's interesting is in 95% of all missing children cases, this isn't just in the national park, just normal missing children cases, they're eventually found no further than 2.8 miles away from where they disappeared in 95% of all missing children's cases. So those are, the normal ones without this these weird anomalous things. So the FBI refused to give Paulides any information on the disappearance of another small 2-year-old boy who disappeared in Yosemite in 1957. In that case, the boy simply vanished as he was walking around the perimeter of his family's campsite. Bloodhounds and hundreds of people searched for him. He apparently climbed 3,000 feet straight up a mountain. He was found dehydrated and suffering from exposure with a t-shirt, no pants, 1 sock, and no shoes. One of the strangest finds by rangers was a missing man who was found leaning against a log, his pants around his ankles. The only parts left of him were part of his tibia in his right pant leg and part of his skull and his scapula bones in 1 inch by 1 inch pieces. Young girls also disappear in the national parks. In Yosemite in 1981, a 14-year-old girl was backpacking on horseback with her parents and a group of people up to 9,200 feet to with her parents and a group of people up 9,200 feet to Sunrise High Sierra Camp. When they stopped to rest, the girl asked if she could go with a 70-year-old man on the trip 50 feet away to take some photos. The old man sat down on a log, and the girl went to the edge of an elevation to take a photo of a lake down below. She walked down the hill and never came back. The FBI agent told Paulides he would never get the information on this case, that it was none of his business, apparently. Another more recent Yosemite case, a young woman was found dead at the bottom of a high cliff from where it seemed she had been flung. It was determined that she had been raped after her fatal fall. In a few cases, Green Berets have surprisingly shown up to join and or take over searches. This actually happened in 1971 in Newcomb, New York, when an 8-year-old boy vanished while walking back to a lodge to change his clothes. His scent was lost in a swamp and he was never found. Paulides said the case that really bothers him the most is of a 6-year-old boy who disappeared in 1969 in the Great Smoky Mountains. 2 families with the last name of Martin happened upon each other, and their 2 sons began playing hide-and-seek in the nearby bushes. When the parents called the boys into camp and one didn't return, the boy's father went up to find help. A rainstorm began as he ran down the hill. At the same time, further down the hill, another family with the last name of Key heard a sickening scream and looked up to see what they thought at first was a man hiding in the bushes. The boy's father reached the valley and called the FBI to meet him at the park, but the agent told him to meet them at another location, which made no sense. The Green Berets showed up again and took over the search completely. Meanwhile, Mr. Martin stayed in the park 2 months looking for his son, who was never found. In researching his books, Paulides visited Martin, the father, who told Paulides that when the Key family spotted the man in the bushes, he or it was carrying something on its shoulder. However, none of this information the Key family offered was included in the FBI report. Paulides was told during the investigation of this case that some wild men, in quotes, live in the park that the Park Service had not been able to control. 12 other people have disappeared in the same area, and the FBI agent monitoring those cases allegedly committed suicide. The phenomena is not limited to the U.S. In the Philippines, many people have disappeared, most never returning. When visitors go there, they're told that they must not wear colorful clothing in the jungle. The bright colors seem to attract whatever it is that takes the people. This clue is similar to the American children who have disappeared wearing bright clothing. So in his books and in his interviews, Paulides does give some possible reasons for the disappearances. On a recent appearance on the radio show Coast to Coast AM, Paulides listed some ideas such as Sasquatch, large birds, extraterrestrials, but he also mentioned demons as a possible cause, which goes along with the belief in the Philippines that the jinn or demons are responsible for the abductions. The reviews of Paulides' books on Amazon show that people are glad to have the information to better prepare themselves to take their families into wilderness areas. Some mention how upset they are that the National Park Service would keep this information to themselves, most likely to protect income from park visits. New York Times bestselling author Whitley Strieber said the books are sobering and chilling and too well researched to ignore. So the latest disappearance, well, according to this, from June 20th of 2014, is of a 34-year-old California firefighter who vanished with his dog on Friday, June 13th of 2014, in the Los Padres National Forest in California. He was camping with a friend when he ran off shoeless, chasing his dog downhill toward a stream. His friend searched for hours, then had to hike 2 days out of the wilderness to find help. The area being searched is 2 times the size of the Grand Canyon. On June 19th, the firefighter's dog was found alive. There's another one here, another update from June 30th of 2014. Mike Herdman, the California firefighter who disappeared 2 weeks ago, chasing his dog during a backpacking trip to the Los Padres National Forest, was found dead on June 27th. Like others who have disappeared in the National Forest, Herdman was found at approximately 1,200 feet above the river bottom, which he had chased his dog into the day he disappeared. When his remains were discovered, authorities were astonished to find him shoeless. Rescue crews spent nearly 5,000 man-hours searching and covering 50 square feet on foot and horseback, as well as by air, including the use of 2 drones. The sheriff stated it was unimaginable that a shoeless person could have traversed so far in such rough terrain. So definitely a really weird, strange story. It's definitely different. Like I said, I've heard bits and pieces of some of this before, so I'm definitely interested in researching this further. So I want to know who out there has looked into this themselves, and if anyone else has turned anything up. Again, I put the links to the books in the show notes into the article, and in the article you can find the videos that from David Paulides, and I'll be checking those out later. But it's definitely weird. Definitely a cause for concern and caution when traveling or vacationing to these places. So what do you guys think it is? I'm interested to know, as always, what your opinion is. Do you think that it's the, what they say, the, I guess it would be the official, story. I don't know, that there are just wild people that live in the woods and they're doing this to people, or do you think is it something stranger, like maybe it is Bigfoot or UFOs or something like that, or even demons? I'm interested to know what your thoughts are. If you haven't done so, subscribe to this channel. We're gonna be doing videos like this every day. So, and also on this channel, you'll find my show, The Sharpening Report, which is an interview show where we interview authors and basically on topics like this, strange topics like this, from a biblical background, biblical point of view. So anyway, yeah, subscribe, share, comment. Let me know what you think. As always, take care and God bless.